All right, let's dive into Lazada today. It's one of the biggest players in Southeast Asia's e-commerce scene. And you know what we've got? A whole bunch of employee reviews, straight from Glassdoor.
Ooh, juicy.
Yeah, it's like getting a backstage pass to the company culture, right?
Absolutely.
You get to see what it's really like to work at a company that's, blowing up as fast as Lazada. I mean, their overall rating on Glassdoor is 3.5, which, on the surface seems okay, but then you look closer and you see 20% give it 5 stars, but 13% are all the way down at 1 star.
Oh,
Yeah, that's a pretty big gap.
that is a huge spread. It makes you wonder what's going on there.
Exactly. It tells you there are some strong opinions
Yeah.
about working at Lazada.
Yeah, some people love it, and some people, well,
Not so much.
not so much.
So we're going to try to unpack all of that today. We're going to look at the good, the bad, and see if we can figure out, what's really going on behind the scenes.
Like a little investigation.
Exactly, an e-commerce investigation. So let's start with the good stuff. What are people raving about? Well, tons of the reviews, hundreds actually, talk about how friendly and helpful their colleagues are. It sounds like a really supportive environment.
Yeah, that's often a sign of a strong team culture. People feel like they can rely on each other, and that can really boost morale.
For sure. And then you've got 137 reviews that specifically call out opportunities for learning and growth, which makes sense.
Right.
Lazada is growing so quickly.
Tons of opportunity.
Yeah, it sounds like a great place to develop your skills.
Especially if you're early in your career.
Yeah.
You can really move up fast in that kind of environment.
But here's the thing. That fast-paced environment, it's not for everyone, because over 143 reviews talk about a lack of work-life balance.
Ah, yeah, the dreaded burnout.
Yeah, people mention long hours, feeling mentally drained.
That's a real problem in high-growth companies. They push so hard for results that they sometimes forget about the people.
And one review even said, and I quote, "mentally and physically drained, no work-life balance." That's tough.
That's rough. If they're seeing that a lot, they might need to rethink things. You can't run a company on burnout.
No, you can't. And then another big theme in the negative reviews is poor management. 127 reviews mention things like unclear procedures, last-minute changes, just a general lack of direction.
It's so frustrating when you don't know what's expected of you.
Exactly. And some reviews even talk about a top-down decision-making style where employees don't really have much input.
Yeah, that's pretty common as companies get bigger.
Yeah.
But it can definitely make people feel less valued.
And then you add in the vague directives and the constant changes, and it's no wonder people are feeling stressed.
Right, it's like trying to hit a moving target. You never know what you're supposed to be aiming for.
So we've got this tension, right, between the amazing opportunities that come with rapid growth and then these downsides like long hours and not so great management.
It's a classic trade-off. You have to weigh the pros and cons.
But there's another layer to this story that I found super interesting. It's the China connection.
Oh, yeah. That adds a whole other dimension.
It does, because a lot of reviews mention Lazada's parent company, Alibaba, and the influence of Chinese work culture on the day-to-day experience.
Right, because Alibaba is a Chinese company.
Exactly. And so many of the reviews talk about senior management being predominantly Chinese and a decision-making style that's very hierarchical and top-down, which is pretty common in some Chinese companies.
That can be a big cultural difference, especially for employees who are used to a more Western style of working.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just decision-making. Some people were uncomfortable with meetings being mainly in Mandarin, even though English was supposed to be the official language.
Oof, yeah, that's a problem. You can't have people feeling excluded just because they don't speak the language.
Right, it creates a real barrier. And then there's this one quote that really stuck with me. It's from a former senior VP of operations, and they said, "The company internally transfers a lot of managers from Alibaba Group or other Chinese internet companies to Lazada Southeast Asia to manage local people. But some of these leaders don't respect the local culture. They speak Mandarin instead of English in meetings, which makes a lot of local people who don't speak Mandarin very uncomfortable."
Wow, that's pretty direct. It sounds like there's a real disconnect.
There is. And then there's this other crazy story. From a vice president at Lazada, apparently the CEO himself, was asking employees to leave positive reviews on Glassdoor to try and boost their rating.
Oh, come on.
I know.
That's not how you fix the problem.
No, it's not. And this VP even said that management should acknowledge and clean the existing leadership problems in HR, countries, and CEO. Listen to the experienced employees. Define a solid strategy, stop favoritism, be self-reflecting, and maybe after that the ratings will improve organically.
It's interesting that they felt comfortable saying that publicly. It suggests they're hoping for some real change.
Yeah, it does. So you can see how this China connection, it adds a whole other level of complexity to the situation.
Absolutely. It's not just a fast-growing company anymore. It's a global company trying to navigate different cultures, management styles,
Yeah.
and all the pressures that come with that.
So what do you think? Is this just the reality of working in this kind of hyper-growth tech environment? Or are there deeper issues at play here?
It's hard to say for sure. But I definitely think there's more to this story than meets the eye.
I agree. So as we keep digging, analyze the data, and see if we can unlock the truth behind Lazada's mixed bag of reviews.
Sounds like a plan.
Stay tuned because this investigation is just getting started.
We've talked about the opportunities at Lazada and the challenges, but there's one thing in these reviews that we haven't touched on yet, and it's a big one.
You're talking about the 361 rule.
Right. Exactly.
Gotta be honest, I've never heard of that. It sounds more like math than a performance review.
Yeah, it's a system that some Chinese companies use, and it's pretty controversial.
Okay, so what is it?
Basically, it forces managers to put employees into 3 buckets.
Okay.
So 30% get the top rating,
Right.
60% get a middle rating, and then 10% automatically go into the lowest category.
Wait, so even if everyone's doing a good job, 10% still get penalized?
That's right.
That's harsh.
Yeah, a lot of people criticize it for that reason. They say it creates a super competitive environment where people are constantly trying to outdo each other.
Yeah, I can see that. Instead of working together, you're basically fighting for your survival.
Exactly. And a lot of Lazada employees mention that feeling.
Yeah, like they have to constantly prove themselves and document everything they do.
Right. It's all about gathering evidence, just in case you need to defend your performance.
It sounds exhausting.
It is. And it can really undermine trust because you're always suspicious of your colleagues.
And if you're always worried about your ranking, you're probably less likely to take risks.
Absolutely. Why try something new if it could backfire and get you a bad rating?
So basically, this system could be contributing to burnout, making people less collaborative, and just creating this overall sense of unfairness.
That's the argument against it.
So why would any company use it?
Well, the people who like the 361 rule say it encourages high performance. It creates a sense of accountability.
I guess, but is that really the best way to motivate people?
That's the debate. Is it better to have a competitive system or one that's more focused on teamwork and development?
It seems like there are better ways to do things.
There are. A lot of companies are moving towards systems that emphasize continuous feedback and growth.
Yeah, where you're having regular conversations with your manager about how you're doing and how you can improve.
Exactly. It's much more constructive.
So if Lazada really wants to make things better for their employees, maybe they should rethink their performance management system.
It would be a good start. It could make a big difference in the overall culture.
I think so too. Because at the end of the day, a company's success depends on its people. If you treat your employees well, give them opportunities to grow, and create a culture of trust and support, that's how you get the best results.
Couldn't agree more.
So we've learned a lot about the challenges at Lazada, but now I'm curious, how does all of this impact the customer experience?
Interesting question. Does a stressed out workforce lead to problems with customer service or product quality?
It's definitely something to consider.
I think we need to shift gears now and look at Lazada from the customer's perspective.
Let's do it. So we've been looking at Lazada from the inside, trying to understand what it's like to actually work there.
Based on all those employee reviews?
Yeah, and we've seen there are definitely some challenges, but now I think it's time to switch gears a bit and think about the customer.
Right, because ultimately, Lazada's success depends on those customers.
Exactly. And the question is, how does everything we've talked about, all those internal issues, how does that impact the customer experience?
It's a good question. I mean, if employees are feeling burnt out, if management is struggling, does that trickle down to the customer?
That's what I'm wondering. Could it affect things like customer service or delivery times? Maybe even the products they offer?
It's definitely possible. Think about it. If you're a customer service rep and you're dealing with constant policy changes and you can't get a straight answer from your manager, how patient are you going to be with a customer?
Yeah, you're probably going to be pretty stressed yourself.
Right. And that stress is going to come through in your interactions with the customer.
And then there's the whole innovation thing. If employees are afraid to take risks,
because of that pressure cooker environment.
Yeah, exactly. Then Lazada might fall behind.
Right. They might not be able to keep up.
Yeah.
with what customers want.
So even though we haven't looked at customer reviews directly, I think it's safe to say that there could be a connection between the employee experience and the customer experience.
It's definitely something to think about. It'd be interesting to see if there's a correlation between periods of high employee turnover and dips in customer satisfaction.
Oh, for sure. Because at the end of the day, companies are made up of people.
That's right.
And how those people are treated, the culture they work in, it all matters.
It affects everything.
And it impacts the customer, too.
So it's not just about profits, it's about people.
Exactly. Companies need to find that balance.
Where employees feel valued and customers are happy.
Because when you have both of those things, that's when you really succeed.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Lazada, I want to leave you with this thought. Think about the companies you interact with every day.
The products you buy, the services you use.
And ask yourself, what's the human story behind those experiences?
Are the employees being treated fairly? Are they empowered to do their best work?
Because those things matter. They matter for the employees. And they matter for you, the customer.
So let's all try to be more conscious of the human side of business.
And support companies that are doing things right.
That's a great takeaway.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a fascinating journey.
As always.
Until next time, keep exploring.
That.
And keep asking those tough questions.